All right, awesome. So I have a good buddy of mine on here, Jeff Van Note. He and I go way back. Made became good friends over Devil's Tickets, which is really all it takes for a vendor to get into my world. No, but he knows a lot about a lot in the world of real estate, from the realtor side of things and also from the lending side of things, both residential and commercial and creative financing. And he and I were touching on a topic which I think you posted about last week, right, on
Yeah.
social media, about Hoboken's vacant storefronts and what
Yeah.
that does. And I was like, well, given the areas that we cover, Morristown falls into that category, and pretty much anything with a downtown, and Chicago is in that category. We have folks, we have an office in Lincoln Park. Like you see vacant retail. So I thought it'd be really good to have them come in and talk about cash flow and talk about what that's doing for those homeowners and how debt may not exist right now to save them.
Yeah, sure. And I appreciate that as always, obviously. Hi to everybody I know and hi to everybody I don't know. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to communicate and work together at some point. If anything, it'll just be hopefully, a good resource, a good voice of reason, or, maybe give you a different perspective on a listing or how to value an asset, or as you look to break into the investment and commercial world, let my experience work for you. So like Brett mentioned, look, most people know Washington Street, most people know your local downtowns, and as thriving as they may appear, what's not thriving are going to be the cash flow analysis resolutions when commercial mortgage loans become due. So Brett, if you're able to pull up that cash flow analysis that I sent you, and then if you want to either pick a volunteer or you be the volunteer, I'm going to show you how the numbers and interest rates really did negatively impact the commercial real estate investment market. And then I'll show you guys how to hopefully provide an alternative strategy to your potential sellers, to your potential clients and landlords, to hopefully bring up the value of their asset. And look, it's like anything else. Like the only good experience is extra experience, right? And experience in down markets and markets with volatility teach us the best lessons. They might be painful while you're going through them. Might feel like you're staying there, butt naked every day. Like I don't know what to do, and everyone's looking at me. I'm not doing any business, right? But if you could use your creativity and your brain, which is why you're in this business, not just all your guys' good looks, you'll be able to make a good name for yourself, right? On top of being able to make a good name for yourself, hopefully you'll be able to make a very prosperous living, all while helping people. I think that's the main function and goal of this. So this is what's called a cash flow analysis. Unlike residential, yes, an asset is worth something that somebody will pay for it, right? I might want to buy a house and Brett might want to buy the same house. To me, it might only be worth $1 million. To Brett, it might be worth 1.2 million, right? It's what somebody's willing to pay for it. When you get into strictly investment, it's all about the numbers, right? Now, back a couple years ago, people were buying 4 caps, which means a 4% return on investment, even 5 caps, which were a little bit higher. Now, in today's market, in today's rising interest rate market, banks are paying a 5% return on investment for deposits into their bank, right? So, would you rather buy $1 million property and make $50,000 a year for buying $1 million property, which would be a 5 cap, right? If everyone pays you rent on time, if there's no repairs, so in the best case scenario, you're making 5% on your money. If you have one vacancy or one eviction or your roof collapses, you might lose money. Or would you rather take that $1 million right now and park that in the bank and make $50,000 a year in interest, guaranteed? You go to sleep, you wake up, there's money in your bank. You go to sleep, you wake up next day, there's more money in your bank. So where the market's still in a big disconnect is landlords, buyers, and even sellers haven't put 2 and 2 together yet of we're no longer in a 4 or 5 cap market. We're now in, let's call it a 5.5 to 8% cap market, right? Again, if you could park your money in the bank and make 5% and have no tenants or no headaches or no repairs, most people are going to do that unless they're strictly real estate people, right? Now, the good news is I don't think interest rates are going to stay here or at this level forever. The bad news is nobody has a crystal ball as to when interest rates are going to drop. But what I want to show you here is just a prime example of a typical Morristown, Hoboken, downtown mixed use property. And we're just going to use hypothetical numbers here, so just follow along. So, Brett, if you can, just for example, let's just take an average 3 residential unit over 1 commercial space in Hoboken today. What is your average 4 unit on Washington Street going for in Hoboken today, would you say?
I think 3 million is like a good round number.
Okay, so let's just take 3 million, right? So now you have 3 residential units over 1 commercial. Now, again, this is like hypothetical, just training purposes. What would you think those 3-bedroom units, right, or those 3 residential units would rent out for on a monthly basis on average?
I would say 3,500. Probably
Each?
more right now, but yeah, let's just say 3,500.
Okay, so if you go down to line 12, right, see where it says monthly rent 5,000,
Yep.
put 3,500 in that line item and then the 2 below it as well. Now, what I want to bring your attention to is on the top right, there's a DSCR calculation that automatically calculates. Does everybody see that right there? It says 3.43% under key metrics on the top right. Yep. So just, I want you guys to watch that number. Now, Brett, how much would you say the average commercial space rents out for on Washington Street in Hoboken?
I would say 8,000 for an average.
Okay, so just change that $10,000 mark down to commercial
Oh,
on
down
the
at the
bottom.
bottom. Sorry.
So, and there's a reason why. So if you look to the left, see how it says residential and then commercial. There's a different vacancy factor for residential and commercial. So when you're filling these out, and you guys hopefully all have this, make sure you're actually inputting it in the right fields. That way your numbers are appropriately calculated. Now, Brett, you had said the loan or the value would be about 3 million, correct?
Correct.
Okay, let's just use worst case scenario. Let's say somebody was buying this property for $3 million and they want to put 30% down. Okay, so it's $900,000 down. Change the loan amount up top to 2.1 million. All right. Now DSCR, see how now it's 1.48. Keep your eye on that number right there. If you go to the left, interest rates, unfortunately, they're no longer at 3.75%. Put 6% in for argument's sake. See how it dropped that DSCR down to 1.18? So that's a problem. But before we go back and adjust that and play around with the numbers, I want you to scroll down and you're going to start filling in expenses, right? So as you scroll down under expenses on line 38, you're going to need to start itemizing your expenses. So where it says insurance, I would say insurance is what, Brett? Probably about 7,000 a year, 6,000.
Sounds fair.
Okay. Taxes, you figure what, 15 to 20,000 maybe? I don't know. Ballpark. Maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe 25.
25,000. Okay. Water and sewer, figure, I don't know, 5,000 for the year. Again, give or take, right? Again, we're just playing around with the numbers. Now let's just scroll back up to the top and check the DSCR. 0.95, right? So on mixed use properties as of today, banks want a 1.4 DSCR. So we're way off the mark, right? Now, again, for argument's sake, Brett, drop the interest rate down to 3%. See, we're back in the black now, right? So if somebody bought this property, let's say in 2020 during COVID, when rates were literally at rock bottom, that means somebody today has a mortgage of 2.1 million, most likely, right? At 3%, and it's coming due in a couple of years. Now, again, if you go back, Brett, and adjust the number to 6% again, that means that as of today, they're going to be unable to refinance that mortgage of 2.1 million, right? So, you have any questions?
Well, Jeff, I was going to say, just so, because we have a lot of residential agents on this, what does like coming due mean in the commercial world?
Sure. So commercial mortgages come in 5, 7, and 10-year terms. So if you do a 5-year loan on year 5, so payment 61, you either have to refinance or reset your terms with the bank, right? So on payment 61, if you haven't refinanced and you don't properly cash flow and that loan becomes due, the bank's going to put you in what's called a maturity default, where you then are going to be in default and your interest rate goes to 24%. And we're seeing a lot of that right now for people that aren't listening and aren't taking the interest rate environment seriously. So we have a guy on the Upper East Side right now that has a $7.2 million mortgage, didn't refinance because he only supports a $5 million loan amount, didn't have the 2.2 million, and every month is $140,000 payment, right? So the key is for all your clients or all your people that are getting in front of the mixed use or commercial investment real estate to start having these conversations with them now, right? The key is setting a game plan and you being that advisor looking out to them. So Brett, if you go back to that number, the 2.1 million, adjust the number down to get up to that 1 point, call it 2.5 just for argument's sake. So go down to maybe 1.75 million.
I think too, just to
Hey Eric, what's up, man?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
I feel like most of us, 99.9% of the people that come to us, I want a deal, right? I want something value add. The same problem comes with a value add property. If you were to buy this and then you still don't turn it over, you still have that issue. Whereas like if you turn it over and you renovate and you get the higher rents and you get the low rents out, you still got to get there in order to be able to refinance. So it's the same thing, even if it's cash flowing, completely done property where you're parking money versus if you're buying something to flip it or to renovate it, you need to get to that end stage.
Absolutely, make a really good point there. So now, Brett, you're still at 1.75. Let's go down to 1.6 and see what that does to the DSCR. Boom, 1.25. Now, early on the call, I said it's 1.4, right? So the banks have raised all requirements on mixed use, but it still passes the overall DSCR test, right? So now banks are going to say, look, we want 1.4, but if you have a loan with them currently, they don't want to have a default loan on their books because then the regulators come in, right? And the auditors come in, reputation risk, and they also don't want to be on the front of the newspaper of, Brett Sikora gets harmed by ABC Bank because they won't work with him. That's the last thing banks want, right? So let's say, Brett, you bought this property during COVID. It's now 2025. Your loan's coming due, and you owe, let's say, $2.1 million or $2 million. You would have to give what's called a cash in refinance, where you have to cut a check or raise private equity or preferred equity, which I think is going to be the name of the game for the next 24 months, and bring $400,000 of new money to pay down your loan to $1.6 million to get this loan to qualify, right? Now, let's say that doesn't exist. That's not an option, right? So now you have $2.1 million of debt. You have your tenants. What's another creative solution you guys can think of to get out of harm's way rather than having your loan go into a maturity default? Anybody?
Sell it.
Maybe, but the only problem, Eric, is again, let's say somebody wants, I'm not selling less than 3 million. I'm not selling less than 3 million, right? Your average person, Eric, is going to say, I'm not putting $1.4 million down, because a sophisticated, savvy investor is going to say, it doesn't make sense. It's not worth It's not worth what somebody paid for it when rates are at 3%, right? So what's another alternative? What's another creative solution? Anybody? Stephen Lewis, where you at, man? You sleeping over there?
Sub 2.
What'd you
It'll
say?
be condo conversion.
Bingo. Oh my God, who said that?
Chris,
Hey, Chris, what's up, man?
what's up?
Condo conversion, 100%. So I just did one of these scenarios for my buddy Greg Taylor, who some of you may know last week. He was looking to buy a property in Queens, and we literally created $700,000 in value on a mixed-use asset, on a vacant mixed-use asset. So it went from $700,000. If you condo it, you're selling it out 1.4. So now what you have to do in New Jersey, I don't know if you guys know this, if you have tenants in the property, it's a pain in the butt to do a condo conversion with tenants because of rights of first refusals and all legal compliance issues, right? But if you took this property right here and you broke it down to selling it out as 3 residential units and selling the commercial space out as a commercial condo, I bet you can get well over $3 million for this property, right? So with price per square footage, and you guys are the experts in Hoboken, correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, but your average price per square footage on some properties is what, $800 to $1,000 price per square foot?
I think that across the board, and somebody else might know, I know Dan Spitz always knows this number. I don't know if he's on, but it's about 750, and that includes like back on the Monroes and stuff and the one beds and all that. But yeah.
Yeah, so now again, right? So you might be able to work out a deal with your prospective tenants, and we mostly know that most renters in Hoboken aspire to become homeowners in Hoboken, right? Isn't that like kind of like the natural progression? Why am I paying $5,000 in rent? Let me just buy a place. So you would then go to your seller or your landlord that's in default, and we would structure some type of construction bridge financing if they don't have the money to pay off the bank, give them maybe $100,000 or so extra to file the condo offering plan, buy them some time, get them out of harm's way with their current debt, and then be able to execute the transition to sell the property from a mixed use asset to all condos, right? And that's again, either preferred equity, right? Cash in refinances with their own capital, or condo conversions or real estate conversions in general, or real estate repurposed is going to be the next wave for the next, I say 24 months, it might be the next 10 years, right? Because some people took out 10-year debt opposed to 5 and 7-year debt. So the more you know how to use this cash flow analysis, the more you can backtrack and pull data from every asset that you see what trades, you see what places sold for, it's all public record, right? You know, ballpark plus or minus where rents are. And if you're able to back into that number, you can go to any landlord in any downtown, say, hey, Mr. Landlord, I know you bought this property in 2020. I pulled your note. I see you have a 3.5% rate. I see you took out a 5-year term. You know, your loan's coming due in June of 2025. You know, if rates don't come down, what are you going to do? And this gives you an open door access to any landlord, because if you're bringing them a solution to their, you know, problem that's getting closer each day, they're going to want to hear what you have to say. So I came up with 3 real strong strategies from a mindset on this perspective. So it's lead with facts, right? I like these numbers in these charts because there's no subjectivity to this. It's facts. You're plugging in real-time data. The second thing is use your creativity. And the third is to provide solutions, right? So if you lead with the facts, they can't be argued. You bring in your creativity, which shows that you're using your brain. You're showing somebody you actually cared and took the time to think about them and their asset, right? And their finances. And the third is to provide viable solutions that 100% can be executed on. So if you're able to get in front of these owners now, regardless of what they choose to do down the road, right? You want to be that person to spearhead that solution for them. No one else is doing that right now. Very few people are doing that right now, right? The residential real estate agents are trying to get into the commercial investment world, but there's a big steep learning curve. And in the mixed use space, it's too small for the big guys and a little bit bigger, right, for the smaller guys. So it's kind of an unknown, untapped asset class that not a lot of people are spending enough time in it, and there isn't that much experience in it. And as banks have tightened up lending on these assets, now's the critical component, critical point in the market for you all to capitalize specifically on the mixed use asset class. And again, you know, I'm hoping, you know, 6 months or a year from now, it turns out to be the best advice I ever gave you, because I can tell you for a fact, these assets are in trouble and these landlords are in trouble. And if you're in front of them, you're going to really have a nice 12-month opportunity, if not longer. But without knowing this data and these key components and metrics, it's very hard to actually value an asset.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you bring that up, because we know that we can differentiate from the typical residential realtor in any of our markets that wants to play in the commercial world, just based on, you know, Eric Ackar, Eric Goldfarb. They both work with Marcus and Millichap. We have Maggie Markle on here. We have, you know, myself, who's actually, you know, structured that on these things for myself as well. I actually have condo converted my own properties and stuff too. So, but then what I think is really like a big differentiator when you're talking about the condo conversion, and this could be a 20-unit building too, with 3 retail spaces underneath it. It's still going to fall into that same problem, and you can still condo convert and sell that out as they come around. If you have the tenants, Jeff, what are you seeing, you know, for the agents? Let's say somebody's like, hey, I have 10 units, 3 of them are protected tenants. I can't do anything with them. I can get 7, or I can get, you know, 6 vacant, and the retail below is a good long-term lease. I'll hang on to that.
Right now, Brett, unfortunately, there's no what am I seeing in the masses, right? What I can tell you from experience, right, is everyone has a price. Some people's price might be higher, right? So you could read in Google stories in New York City where you've had literally 90-year-old little single women, right, living in buildings that got bought out for multi-million dollars because they needed that last building to complete a skyscraper. Um, what I would tell you is inflation is on people's sides right now, right? Where if you go to somebody and you're like, hey, I'm gonna give you 5 grand certified funds plus pay for your movers to get out. I think your average person is gonna do that today, right? Um, I would say start small. Hey, look here, I know you're protected. Here's 2 grand. I'll help you relocate. Here's the mover. I'll pay for the movers too. I think it all comes down to the economics on the property. If you have 1 or 2 holdovers, I've had people buy people out for $50,000 to $100,000 because they're going to make 2 million on the back end, right? So you have to figure out what the actual real numbers are. But I think like anything, it's like you have to take a true like gentleman's approach to every situation. Hey, look, this is business. I know you live here. I'll give you as much time as you need, but I need you to sign this waiver, right? Or I need you to tell me, give me your number and I'll work with you, right? I think even if you're the one doing the project, Brett, hey, listen, I'm just the middleman, even though it's your project, right? Hey, I'm just the middleman. I'm here on behalf of the owner. He wants to work with you. He asked me to come and help facilitate something fair for both sides. What does that look like? I really need a new car. Okay, how much is your new car gonna be? 20 grand, right? Okay, here's the deal. You sign everything. You sign your hold harmless. You sign all your rights away. Basically, as soon as you move out, here's your certified check for 20 grand to go get your new car, right? So I think that's what you're going to start to see. And I think because these loans are not going to be able to be refinanced, and with all the new, if you look at Manhattan, all the new condo inventory, beautiful luxury condo inventory coming to market, especially in the FIDI, like the first step is building the building, right? The second step is trying to fill or selling the building. Then the next step is acquiring or taking on additional debt to kind of weather the storm. The fourth step is, okay, let's just try and get out and move on. So I think you have to look at each project individually. But if you look at the amount of people that have bought land, specifically in the Jersey City market, as you know, I watched that because in my backyard. I think anyone that bought land in the last 18 months is down 30 to 50% on the land value alone, right? And that's strictly because everyone's chasing the condo market at 3% rates, 2% rates. And it's not to say the condo market is going to drop. It's to say that lenders have pulled back from that speculative market and the actual cost to fund the loan has gone up almost double, which now based on what's called your rental fallback option in lieu of not being able to sell the condos, strictly diminishes your total amount of debt that you can get on your project. So yes, you can forecast out condo sales and you can lend based on loan to cost, but you also have to make sure it meets your second hurdle, which would be this cash flow analysis. So even if you build out 10 condos, what if that had a 10-unit rental building? What's the maximum loan amount? Those numbers have to be laterally in line, right? So, hey, we can support 1.6 million, but this cash flow only supports 1.5 million. You're going off of the lower amount. So that's where the numbers have to be adjusted. So, I think, again, if you're strategic and you're, a street person where you can go out, wheel and deal, go pull up everyone that bought land in the past 18 months. Because I can tell you, I've probably already seen the majority of the projects here. A lot of those people are just sitting on the land right now or sitting on these vacant buildings, hoping rates come down a little bit so they can get more aggressive additional funding and leverage. But you can only sit on land for so long before, you just have all that money tied up and eventually you're going to have to move on it. So we think land is actually going to become attractive for actual sponsored developers that can cut their costs down and obviously produce quality product.
Awesome. Very cool, man. I appreciate it. Does anybody have questions too before we let Jeff run?
I just want to, it might be lengthy, but once the condo conversion starts, like how does that look as time frame and presenting that to the bank? I mean, I think that's going to take much longer than 3 minutes right now, but
Every project's different, so it all depends on where you're at, right? So the first question would be, it's always easier to deal with a vacant asset, less laws and restrictions, right? You could still go through a condo conversion without telling anybody, right? As long as the building's set up for condos. A lot of the older buildings, there aren't separate meters, all the other nonsense that you need to actually have condos, right? So it's a little bit more complicated. It's easier to build out a condo building and convert it to rentals because you built it out, obviously, as condos, right? I think in New Jersey, and Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you get a condo offering plan done in like 90 days or less. Like, it's not a very tough New York City takes a lot longer. I know that for sure. I think it's like a year in New York City, more regulations and restrictions and money, obviously. But I would say, like, the larger the project, the harder it is. When you're doing, let's say, 4 to 10 units or 2 to 10 units on the condo side, you should be in and out in 6 months or less, unless the building needs like crazy extensive work, separate boilers, and all the other nonsense. Again, all the older buildings most likely had one boiler for the entire building, right? It was probably a rundown place that somebody bought for 200 grand 30 or 40 years ago, if that. But again, that's where you're going to see the opportunity as well, right? So yeah, it's a problem, it's a headache, it's a disaster, but if you get somebody that knows what they're doing and you have your plumbers and your electricians all lined up, right, and your attorney and your bank and your funds, you can go in 6 months, right, make your moves, play your chess match, and successfully do it. I would say to always plan probably for 18 on any project that involves construction and legal. Right now, I'd say a minimum 18 months, unless you have a turnkey operation.
Jeff, I got a question for you, Moshe,
Yes,
just
sir.
like your opinion. What do you think is the threshold for when development in a neighborhood or redevelopment goes from rentals to condos? Like the Heights now, I feel like any land or redevelopment, it'll make sense whatever number they want purely on a condo play. Is it just the land prices getting to a certain point, or is there like a price per square foot where then it makes sense to do condos instead of rentals? Because even in my experience in Brooklyn, everything I sold was developed into rentals. Now I'm seeing everything that these guys are selling in Brooklyn turning into condos and like Bushwick, Bed-Stuy. So like, what is your opinion on that?
Well, I think we first have to look at the true fact and component of a true, I say it in quotes, affordable housing shortage, right? It's a very hard answer because everyone said, look, buy these 500 rental units and just cash flow them, cash flow them. Yes, that's great when you buy them and build them for 100 million, right? And rates go to 3%. Now they're worth 200 million. You refinance, take out new debt of 170 million. You make $70 million tax free at 3%. But now that 3% is due, right? And you're like, oh shit. And now rates are at 6%. Theoretically, what's this building even worth, right? And if rents start to soften, like Brooklyn rents have started to soften tremendously because people are now taking their butts from Brooklyn and moving over here, right? I remember in 2013 when we opened up our office in Bed-Stuy and Williamsburg was still hot, like it's just on the cusp of getting hot there.
Yeah.
I'm like, and I had just moved from New York to Hoboken in 2014, so I'm like, why would you rent a 2-bedroom in Williamsburg for $7,000 a month, right? When you could live in Hoboken at the time, high end, for $3,000 a month. I'm like, taxes are cheaper. It's actually an easier commute to New York City. Let all those people spend $7,000 a month when I could live in Hoboken, which is again closer to the water and everything else, for $3,000 a month. Like, it shouldn't be that big of a gap. So to answer your question, again, there's no real true rhyme or reason. I think there's so much money out there that people will always be developing, right? Regardless of interest rates, regardless of anything, because they have to keep their crews in line and they have to keep everybody busy. And like a lot of people like to have action. A lot of people treat real estate truly like a hobby. I'm sure you see that as well, right? The next thing I'll tell you is right now, there's no, hey, here's the price point, right? For price per square footage on a brand new luxury condo. Like we're working on, so I posted on the Lower East Side, you pull it up, 330 grand. A lady went in 2017 to build this. She just put the superstructure up this month. Her lender went out of business. COVID happened. Like crazy, right? Totally crazy. And Sirhan, right? Ryan Sirhan priced her sellout at $2,400 price per square foot. We're like, hold on a second here. This is, you can pull it up again, 330 grand. I'm like, this block is not a $2,400 price per square foot block. Like you can live on the Upper East Side. You could buy a townhome on the Upper East Side for less than that, right?
Mhm.
So now, again, that's not to say that there aren't 12 trust fund babies out there who need to live on the Lower East Side, whose parents won't spend $2,400 price per square foot to be in the newest luxury boutique condo building on the Lower East Side, right?
Mhm.
We're working on a project here in Jersey City Heights. Guy bought the land on a 1031 exchange. I think he overpaid for the project by $500,000, but if he didn't buy with a 1031, he would have spent $1 million in taxes, right? So like in his eyes, yeah, he overpaid by 500 grand, but he saved an additional 500,000 in taxes. If we do the rental component where he builds it as rentals, his max loan is 2.2 million, right? Whereas if we do it as a 9-unit condo sellout plus retail, I believe his sellout would be closer to 8 million, right? So that's where interest rates really negatively impact the rental landlord component in the marketplace, where the only other option is, if you don't do condos, is to mail the keys back into the bank. Because not many people can survive with a 24% interest rate on any debt, let alone like maximum debt, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. And again, I think the majority of people, as you know, that go in to develop, they usually pool money, they raise equity, right? Usually very few people go in and buy the land on their own. So like right now, we saw a deal in Newark. A guy paid like, I think it was 2.3 million for the land in Newark. I think the land's worth like 600 grand. Because again, when you build in the cost to construct and what the rents are going to be based on a 6% interest rate or a 7% interest rate in Newark, yeah, listen, you overpaid for the land by a lot. You know what I mean? So we still haven't seen the true opportunity in the land market come to the market yet, Eric. But I think the more you stay in front of those pieces or pull up, I don't know if you pull up a report of who've acquired land like in your demographic that you target, you'll be able to identify on your own very quickly who overpaid and who's safe. I hope
Awesome.
they answered some of your questions.
Yeah, no, that I figured it's not like a one word answer, but yeah, I appreciate the insight.
If you put up a 10-unit luxury building and want to set a record, you could probably do that in this market because there's so much freaking money out there, right? If you put up a 50-unit luxury building, it might be tough. You know what I mean? Because are there 50 luxury buyers at all one price point? Like we pulled a stat in New York City that like new condo development on average, regardless of the size, sells like 1.7 units per month until sellout. So if you have 10 units, you could do the math, right? It might take you 5 or 6 months to sell it out. If you have 100 units, it might take you 4 years to sell out. And then if the neighbor puts up a beautiful building next door, people want new and now, right? So if they know 3 new buildings are coming up, they might just extend their lease until the brand new product hits their market. So that's what I would keep your eyes on. Like the smaller boutique, I think, yes, they have to come back down from reality. Like my neighbor across the street, I live on Prospect in the Heights. Like they built units that they're asking big money for, right? And I'm like, this isn't 2020. This isn't 2021. Like you're not going to get X for this property, and you're not going to get X as a 2-family for this property. So like maybe adjust your numbers down, because the $1 million buyer right now in the Heights can pretty much call the shots of what they want, right? Because of the surplus of inventory. So obviously compare like price point of inventory, like 800,000 to 1.3 million in the Heights. I think that's where you're going to see a surplus of newer inventory coming to market, where it's a supply and demand.
Awesome. Jeff, I don't mean to cut you off. I know we could rap all day about values and where things are going. One thought too that I thought of as well, in the state of New Jersey, when you're 10 units and above, you need an engineering report, and that is what is going to add time. So if you're, as an agent, as a broker, focus on the 9 and below if you're looking to do a condo conversion. And just to your point, it's going to be a sweet in and out sort of thing. So, Tara, even for you down in Red Bank, that market, probably a huge condo market, if people wanted to purchase condos, and there just aren't a lot available. So keep that in your back pocket. Jeff's contact info is in that email that I forwarded. It's in his spreadsheet there. And let's make some movement towards that mixed use multifamily, because like you said, Jeff, they're hurting. And I personally am one of those. October of 2022, I had a commercial arm. It wasn't a balloon, but it was an arm, and it adjusted to 7.25. So I feel it would, fortunately we had the equity in the property and the rents have come up since then, but you see it, and guess what? I'm putting the property on the market in the next 30 days because I don't want to own it anymore.
The other thing is everyone that took out SBA loans on their like owner occupied mixed use or commercial facility. Don't forget during 2020, we just had a guy reach out on $2 million of debt. His payment went from $13,000 a month to $21,000 a month in 1 month without notice, right? Because prime went up. So you're gonna start hearing all these, oh shit, like, I can't weather the storm anymore. He's like, I was making $100,000 a year, but now because my payment went from 13,000 to 21,000, I'm not making any money by running my business. The SBA, the feds are taking all my money now. Right. So if you have any questions or you ever need me, obviously, I'm fully accessible. I'm happy to run over all these cash flow analysis with you, your investors, your landlords, any projects you guys are working on free of charge. Let's start drumming up some business. And if you need me as a resource, please reach out at any time.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Wish you guys the best. If you have anything, let me know.